All right, Happy New Year. This is Mr. McFall. I'm going to go through what we should be doing for Monday and Tuesday. There's a gold day on Monday, so we're starting with gold, and then blue on Tuesday. So for medical interventions, we're going to kind of maybe start at 1.3. I don't think we got too far into it. So hopefully you have all of your assignments turned in, but there are still several of you that do not. So the assignments of anything that begins with a 1.2, you need to get in as soon as possible. So, or really 1.1s. Some of you are still missing several assignments there. So get that in as soon as possible. But when antibiotics fail and the superbugs assignments are the ones that are most recent that I'm still missing assignments from. Thank you to those of you who have turned things in on time. Let's just get things turned in. We have about 6 weeks left in this trimester, so definitely want to fall any further behind. So for Monday and Tuesday, we're going to get into this lesson on hearing. And so 1.3, the aftermath hearing loss. So if we go to 131, get in the background of Sue Smith, got her bacterial meningitis treated. She's healthy, she's fine, but the physician has recommended that she have her hearing checked because hearing loss can be very subtle and slow, but meningitis sometimes can lead to hearing loss. So it's a higher incidence than normal. So we're going to get into that in this lesson the first couple of days. If you look at the 1.3 student workbook, this is located in Canvas, so this is what you'll see. All right. And we're going to focus on 1.3.1 and a little of 1.3.2 the first couple of days. So 1.3, the aftermath hearing loss. So I did initially have a couple pages of this, but it's only a 9-page or 8-page assignment. So I went ahead and just made it one big assignment that will be due next Monday, the 11th, 11:59 p.m., as you can see. All right. So you have 1 week, and it shouldn't be really that challenging to get that done. The challenging things that we'll be doing some online work with audiograms and hearing testing in class. So you get to test your own hearing, a little fun activity with a tuning fork, as well as doing an online hearing test as well. But here's the document, and it gets into the background of sound in terms like pitch and frequency. And I'm not going to demonstrate those by trying to sing or anything like that, but you hear of pitch if you watch The Voice or some of those other shows, they talk about the pitch being on pitch and things like that. That basically relates to frequency, and then intensity and amplitude is just think of how loud something is. This is more how high or low it is, whereas this is more how loud something is. And so those together make up the quality of the sound. And so you'll read some background on that. You'll draw a color-coded ear diagram, and I'll show you where all this is. So so that's the main things from 131. So if we go to this activity, you'll go to the 131 student resource sheet, the physics of sound. This gives you a little bit of background on frequency and intensity or amplitude, but you get more information if you go into here. All right, physics of sound, and you can see some more information on that in these first 3 paragraphs. These hearing loss case studies we'll talk about in just a minute. And so that gets the information about how sound works. And so now we'll get to the actual structure of the ear. And so you're going to look at the structure of the outer, middle, and inner ear. And some of you may have done this and gotten this already started, and cheers to you for doing that. So, but here are the parts of the ear. So you have the human ear total, then you have the outer ear, the inner ear, the middle ear, and then the inner ear, okay? And so you look at those parts and you're going to label those structures. So if you go back to the workbook and you see draw a color-coded diagram of the ear, so put it on another sheet of paper and paste it in if you need to, divide it into its 3 regions and label each part and describe what each part does. It may be helpful to do this like in your lab journal, like turn your lab journal sideways, use those grid lines to help divide things into thirds. And then submit it that way. Kind of, if you want to submit it landscape instead of portrait. It might be easier to to draw it that way. Also, don't forget to don't just label them, but describe what each part does. So when you go back and look at these structures, you need to have, for all of these structures that are labeled, just a quick description of what they are. You may need to do some research online to do that. Here's another image of those. So these are the step number 8, or those structures listed again. Here's a more anatomically accurate graphic of what this looks like. And so you can see the differences between the so you think of like essentially the outer ear being the receiver. Okay, it's kind of like the head of the microphone. It's just receiving and taking in information. All right, and so that's the auditory canal. And then you get into the middle ear, and the middle ear is where that auditory information, that those sound waves are transmitted into essentially electrical waves that are then going to be transmitted to the auditory nerve into the brain, the temporal lobe. The temporal lobe, which is most responsible for hearing. And so here you can see these parts in the middle ear. That's where this transmission, you hear about the eardrum, okay? And there's a little hammer that basically vibrates on that tympanic membrane, which is essentially the eardrum. And then all of that through this machinery gets transmitted into a sound in the cochlea, and the cochlea transmits it to the auditory nerve. Okay, and there's fluid, and you may have heard of fluid in the inner ear and the cochlea, and that also relates to balance. That fluid helps transmit the sound, but if you think about if you spun yourself around and gotten dizzy before, this fluid continues to move, and that's why you feel dizzy. And one way to undizify yourself or to reestablish equilibrium is to spin the other direction, because it makes that fluid go the other direction until it's balanced again. You also see eustachian tubes, and so if you've been sick before and you get pressure in your ears, this eustachian tube is connected to the nasal cavity, and so that's why you get pressure in the ears. Children get ear infections, and so the fluid doesn't drain really well because these eustachian tubes are more narrow, so the fluid gets trapped in here and becomes infected. It gets trapped all the way out to here. The fluid becomes infected with bacteria, and that's what ear infections are. So if maybe you had tubes in your ears as a kid, and you got ear infections a lot, that's what happens. A virus happens, you get a lot of congestion. Coughing causes that fluid to go here, and then that's where people end up with ear infections. All right, that's a little side note that's not important what we're doing, but thought I would share that. So, and here once again, you can see more information about how it works. All right, so you can see the different parts of how the sound waves are transmitted as you go through the different steps. So just click on steps 1 through 6 here and fill those out. So definitely by the time you come to class Wednesday, you need to have this done, and 1 through 2, you have this done. And the date, we are going to spend some time talking about this in class. I'm also going to be assigning you a patient in class, a personal case study patient. So you'll have some work time, but we'll kind of jump ahead to the case study analysis and talk about sensory neural and conductive hearing loss, which is the 2 types of hearing loss. So we'll get into this a little bit, and I'll assign you 2 patients. If you look on this next page, there are 2 patients that you'll need to do. I'll assign you those, or you'll pick those 2 in class. So if you're on a blue day, actually there's 7 of these patients, but you're only going to do 2. You don't need to worry about doing this page on Monday. We'll work on this Tuesday. And the people who are on gold days, I'll assign you the 2 patients, and then you'll go through and find people who have the other patients that you don't have on Wednesday, Thursday. So that kind of gets us through the first couple of days. Here you can see, so basically if you can get through pages 2 through 4, and then page 5 we'll work through a little bit in class and finish then Wednesday, Thursday. So a lot of background into hearing loss, and this lesson won't even take the full week, I don't think, for us to do. Wednesday and Thursday we'll do some hearing testing. And 1 through 2, can you hear me now? You can see some background on what's called a René test. We will work on this in class Wednesday and Thursday. And then audiograms, we'll talk about that as well Wednesday and Thursday. So you don't need to go really too far into one 1 through 2. So, or 1 through 2. As far as the information for here, just find a good internet source to get this information if you want to work ahead on it, and relate it back to Sue Smith. So, nothing to turn in yet, unless you are one of those individuals who's not turned things in due to whatever reason. I really need to see you get that stuff in as soon as possible to get a decent amount of credit on it. So, all right, Happy New Year. Welcome to 2021. We're going to have a great second half of the year, great second half of this trimester, and looking forward to seeing you all. So, if I've seen you on Gold Day, good to see you. And if not, I'll see you on Tuesday for the Blue people. So have a great day, and email me if you have any questions. Thanks.